The RC10 from Team Associated, one of the most sought after and all-time favorite RC cars from hobbyists and racers all across the world. If you show up with one of these to the track or your favorite bashing spot, people are probably gonna say, hey, this guy is crazy for ruining the value of this, or you're probably Mr. Moneybags because these things go for a pretty penny nowadays. Luckily for me, I got my hands on this guy right here. This is pretty much bottom of the barrel RC10 at the time, and you too can get one for cheap. So if you guys want a vintage gold pan of your own and you don't want to break the bank getting one, then stick around because I'll show you guys how you can buy one of these for cheap, have fun with it without ruining the value or fear of ruining the value. So let's get into it. Now, if you don't want me to bore you with the history of this thing and why this thing is such an all-time classic, then don't worry because I'll make this quick. Plus, I'm pretty much a total noob to the RC10 and its history, so I don't want to get anything wrong with it. Okay, so basically the RC10 came out in 1984, and at the hands of some pretty competent racers, this thing was winning the championships almost year after year, the IFMAR World Championships, by the way, and that's pretty much the Super Bowl for RC racing. Because of the racing pedigree that the RC10 has, you're pretty much not going to be able to find one of the original models, the most sought after models, unless they're beat up for about $200 to $300, and if they're spotless and in the box, you're looking at upwards of $700 plus. So these things go for, like I said, a pretty penny. So of course, throughout the years, Team Associated kept innovating, kept coming out with new RCs and improving upon their original design, and that's where we end up with this thing right here that they're trying to pump out to the masses, and this is the RC10 Championship Edition. So even though it says Championship Edition on the box, on the manuals, it has a gold pan, you must be thinking, wow, this thing must go for a lot, you know, this is a real collectible. But in reality, at the time, this was pretty much their bottom of the barrel offering. This was their entry-level car or entry-level kit for RC hobbyists all across the world at the time. And you can pretty much tell by the parts it had. It had bushings instead of bearings. It came with a mechanical speed controller instead of an electronic speed controller. And by this point, they had likely cut some costs by including these plastic shock caps. Also, one of the things I noticed from the tub, the gold pan tub, which is something that these are probably the most recognized for, is that by this time, the tub is kind of like a little bit of an orangey color instead of the full-on gold that you can see from some of the earlier models. From a distance, it looks good, but close up, you can probably tell the color difference. Anyways, because of this, you can probably find these for $100, maybe $150 at the most online. And guess how much I actually picked mine up for? $60.
It's very nice.
Anytime you get a ready to run model, doesn't matter if it's vintage or new, anything under $100, that's a pretty good deal. So $60 for something that's pretty much ready to run, it's vintage too, I'd say that was a steal. Now my version of this looks like it's been upgraded over the years, which to me it's pretty much great because I don't have to go upgrade some of these parts, some of these older parts if I had to myself. Now if you're a collector, then this one is probably not for you, or this specific example that I'm showing you guys is not for you. So my example has been heavily upgraded since this first came out back in the day. There's definitely no mechanical speed controller. It has an ESC now, a Tekin Rebel ESC it looks like. It's still kind of from that era, so still reminiscent of those times, which is cool to see. It also came with this Airtronics radio and receiver combo, and I believe it also has an Airtronics servo to control the steering. This kit didn't come with electronics aside from the mechanical speed controller, so cool to see that all three of these things are still Airtronics and once again reminiscent of those times. Now another thing too is that by the looks of the motor, this definitely has once again been upgraded from the stock silver can, so cool to see. I'm not sure how fast it is, so we'll see when we get it out there. It also came with this RPM kind of cover on the back, and I'm not sure if these arms here are original. A lot of the times people had them dyed black or different colors. Usually they came as this, white kind of transparent nylon color, so Not sure if these have been dyed. They don't look like they have, so these might be RPM parts as well. So a lot of different upgrades going into this little guy right here. The previous owner was also nice enough to give me the original wheels and tires, which is pretty cool. They're pretty much worthless now without any of that rubber there. So we have these spares on here, so when we take it out outside in a second, we can actually get some footage of this thing. Now, I should probably clarify, there are definitely some cheaper RC10 finds out there, but if you're looking for that vintage gold pan, then this one right here is probably the one that you're gonna wanna get, or the one that you're gonna find at the cheapest price. The sun is blinding me now, but I'm outside ready to get started with this RC10. Do a little bit runs out here, but I showed you guys how to get an RC10 for cheap, and that's pretty much, you know, looking for the Championship Edition, least desirable models, or getting lucky on Facebook, eBay, whatever other marketplace there are out there. But I didn't show you guys how you can get them for cheap. So once again, eBay, Facebook, that's where I get my stuff used. But let's say someone just picks up an RC10 out of their closet. You know, if they don't remember what the name of it was, they're probably going to list it up for vintage RC cars, stuff like that. So more generic stuff. So that's tip number one. Tip number two is, let's say they remember bits and pieces of the name. So Associated, they list it up as Associated RC car. That's tip number two. Tip number three is, you know, if they don't even remember what the heck it is, a lot of the times, and this is how I get my vintage RC cars for cheap, a lot of the times they just list it up as whatever the brands that they see, the stickers or the electronics on it. So if we have a look at my RC10 over here, you can see, obviously this one says RC10, but you know, maybe Pro Line, they list it up as Pro Line RC car, Tekin RC car. And that's pretty much exactly how I got my Grasshopper and my Raider. Someone listed it up as a Futaba RC car, so that's exactly how I get my cheap RC cars, and just a little bit of a tip for you guys. But yeah, let's get started, turn this thing on. What the heck happened? Oh, okay, so the range on this controller is not that far. Alright, right off the bat, a couple of things I don't like about the RC10 is the battery tray. Obviously you can change that, but it doesn't fit my lipo. Another thing too, to get the body on, kind of need to wiggle the antenna through it. You gotta get this little front lip in first. It's a struggle. And then the last thing is, you gotta extend the antenna on this thing like 10 feet. Check this out. So let me back up real quick. You gotta get this thing up pretty high to be able to get any sort of range on your RC10 and make sure it doesn't kind of steer away from you. But anyways, those are the things I hate. Let's drive this thing. Okay, stuck the antenna out. It looked kind of dumb, but I guess this is what we looked like back in the days. Obviously, this car's older than myself, so I'm showing my age here, but for you guys that drove these back in the days, I am so sorry. But check this thing out. Getting pretty hot out here, so I'm gonna head inside. Hope you liked the little quick video on the RC10. My time got cut short because this controller, I think, takes 10 freaking batteries, and I couldn't find any new ones to kind of power it up for, you know, more than 30 minutes, but I had fun with it. Definitely found some weak spots, and I know why this is worth $60 at least. This is what I paid for mine. All the tires are kind of coming apart, and definitely hearing some rattles with the dog bones on the back. But yeah, if you guys like it, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next videos.